Hello again, everybody! This is Dr. Kendo, and I'm here with another Scribblenauts Unlimited Object Editor commentary. This is where I create your favorite characters in the Scribblenauts Unlimited Object Editor, only on the Wii U and PC versions of this game, because the feature is not available on the mobile or 3DS versions of it. We've started off with the Skeleton Warrior as the source object. Make sure to take off all of the limbs and the head and all of that stuff, just leaving the torso here. And we're doing this because we're going to be creating Twisted Bonnie. Of course, that's from FNaF, the Twisted Ones. We created Twisted Freddy last week, and by far, absolutely the most highly requested Twisted animatronic after that was going to be, of course, for Bonnie here. So that's why we're doing Twisted Bonnie, because I just create whatever is most popular, most requested here by you guys based on your comments and things. And so you can see that now that we've kind of painted up everything this purpley color, we can start getting to the creation. So let's go ahead and start off by typing in a golem, and we're going to take that back thigh piece of the golem, so just above the foot of that golem right here, and this will make the body. Basically, Twisted Bonnie's body is it's sort of divided up into two parts, we could say, for the purposes of this creation, because there's a lot of the endoskeleton or like rib cage looking parts, you know, showing on one side. It would be to our left, and that's why the Skeleton Warrior was our source object, our starting piece. But then it's like on the other side, there's the mostly normal animatronic looking body, a Hydra, one of the jaw pieces, the bottom jaw of any of those Hydra. We actually use that kind of for this lower torso part, I guess, for our Twisted Bonnie today. Below those golem thigh pieces, we have two of them, of course, for the light and dark purple colors. A quad mount we just use. That's basically just to show that there is kind of more of that dark skeletal frame in there, in essence, where the spine would be and everything. That's kind of showing, so that's where we put that. And golden eggs we're going to use several times, because the golden egg is going to be for the shoulders, but also going down the arm. It's going to kind of connect in several places. We'll get to the rest in a second. There's also probably going to be golden eggs down for the legs, I'm pretty sure. But I want to work through all of the other parts, like this tornado right here. There's this triangular shape kind of near the top of the tornado that you can take and use that. When you see the teaser trailer of Twisted Bonnie, you can actually see that the body is being like ripped and torn from the seams. You know, it's like there are certain parts of it that are just coming off or just barely hanging on by a thread, I guess you could say. And so we also got a berry for some of the infection, the bubbly infection. That berry we put off to the right, kind of below those golem thigh pieces from earlier. I just put down some extra golden eggs, so we're good there. And then we'll go with treant. The treant, we took the back foot piece. Basically, this is not, well, for one, I guess I'll start off by saying that we actually cannot see the legs of Twisted Bonnie, and by that I mean the feet more so. We can't see the bottom parts of the legs and the feet and all that, so it was a similar deal with Twisted Freddy for the most part, and a lot of the Twisted animatronics, but a good summarizing piece that can get us extra leg in there while also getting the foot was the treant piece. And we use mutton for the arm that's to our right. Of course, that's Twisted Bonnie's left arm, and then on the other side, of course, that's to our left. Now, then we just went with scroggin. The mutton is for some holes and ripping in those arms on the inner part of the arms, while the scroggin is for some of the bubbly infection on the outside. And we actually also just went with Kaikatia. Same thing from the last episodes. If you saw Twisted Freddy, you know, that was kind of the first time we used those stamps. A lot of seeds and trail mix like mixture and stuff. And so you saw how to spell it on screen. We also have two dots to add to that bubbly infectionness. And I'm gonna go with Canadian bacon, and we can take that to put on the leg that's to our left. Of course, that's Twisted Bonnie's right leg. There's sort of just like this hole in there, and so for that we can basically best represent it with a stamp that's kind of like this. And so I went with the Canadian bacon. Actually, I liked that because it has more than just one solid color with kind of two tones or two slight variations on the hues. I think that looks good, and so we'll go with fangs for the spikes. Of course, Twisted Bonnie has spikes on the shoulders, which is insane. I mean, this thing it just looks absolutely crazy, and I like it. So that's the spikes on that side, but on this other side, of course, to our right, we're gonna go with the spider fish. We can take that bottom fin. I actually like this because it has a slight piece of, I guess, light hitting it. You know, there's like a little bit of white on the edge of it. I sort of like that. It's gonna give us some depth and just detail in our design. Flying fish, however, is a similar fin shape, but doesn't have the shading. And would you look at that, we've actually hit the stamp limit right there. I thought I had like maybe one or two more stamps, but that's okay. I think we've got our base design right here. We are gonna do this in several parts, kind of like Twisted Freddy. You know, we create the head separately and both of the hands separately, so we will be resuming that strategy. But for right now, let's go ahead and do the scripting and whatnot in the properties editor for Twisted Bonnie in just a second. And so while I'm here, I like to read the background information and fun facts about the characters. We already read background information about the book that the twisted animatronics come from. Of course, that's the twisted ones, but we read that last time in the last episode for Twisted Freddy. So this time, let's kind of just talk about Twisted Bonnie, of course, from the book that I mentioned called Five Nights at Freddy's, the twisted ones. It just looks absolutely crazy and menacing, taking the design of FNaF animatronics to a whole new level. It's an animatronic, but we can actually see in that teaser image from Scott's website of it for the book that Twisted Bonnie is somehow drooling and has gums, again, despite being an animatronic. And other than that, this new Bonnie is just all ripped up and torn up, holes and slashes everywhere, and like Twisted Freddy, there is some of that bubbly infection, but they're not green ones on Twisted Bonnie, but rather they match kind of that purple color, and spikes on the shoulders, 2 sets of mouths, or at least 2 sets of bottom jaws, and inward growing long fingernail claws. Yeah, I mean, no one would want to run into this thing. It's crazy. We've got a head as the source object for our next creation, of course, to create the head. Basilosaurus I just typed in after giving this color pattern and texture pattern to the head right here as the base of the head, the main part of the head, I guess we should say. The Basilosaurus, it's right before the end tail piece. Kind of grab that body piece there, and we can paint it a little bit lightish purple in this same shade. That's going to start off the ears. We'll get to that in a second. I'm going to need to kind of lay out this head, several pieces of it, I guess, that are all around, and then be moving things and adjusting things as we go. That's typically how all of the creations go, but this one, it's really going to need it because there's just so many different pieces, and I know that because of that, we're not going to be able to include everything. So if you're like, oh, you forgot this one piece, no, I didn't forget. It's based on the stamp limit of this game. This game is called Scribblenauts Unlimited, but it does actually have a stamp limit. Each one of these things is a stamp that we're putting on, like we put a dot behind that parasite head. The parasite head we painted all black because I like that it's kind of like a circle for the inner part of the eye, but it has that snout piece, I guess you could call it, the proboscis that's kind of coming out, and so I like that for some extra tearing and ripping in the eye right there, and then dough on the other side, D-O-U-G-H, and we used a rabbit, the body piece of the rabbit, and that's gonna be actually used for the snout area, you know, where the nose is for Twisted Bonnie. And this is actually kind of interesting. We're going with a 3-ball. You know, we went with an 8-ball for our Twisted Freddy. A pretty good stamp to get, I guess, 2 different color parts and 2 different circles for the eyes, but then we can put wart within that, just like our Twisted Freddy, and the wart will actually be for the pupil. So kind of using the 3-ball, it's a reddish looking ball, so it's, of course, from pool or billiards. And so when we paint it actually pink like this, it does look so much like the Twisted Bonnie character, its eyes, and it being red, it's not a far off, I guess, hue change. It's not a far off color change just to paint it pink. Whereas if you went with the 8-ball, it would be even darker because the 8-ball is black. So that's why we did that. Scorpion, bottom, middle, tail piece. That was for the nose, painted black. A shambler, the back arm of the shambler, where it kind of looks like it has a claw at the end. We actually did that for the outer jaw piece. We'll get to that in a second. We got Irish moss to be the teeth. Again, I would love to do every tooth individually, but we would never, ever, ever have enough stamp space to do that unless you were making another object, you know, like we're gonna be making the hands separately with glue pieces. You could probably even glue on a mouth if you got that serious and crazy with it, or you could also script kind of like the beginning part of the head to be worn on the face like glasses, which we're gonna show you in a second, and you could do kind of the top part of the head to be worn on the head like a hat. So that's another way to go around it. I'm trying to basically get a middle ground where I do create enough detail for you guys and accurately make these creations and these characters, but I want it to be accessible to everybody, you know, as a tutorial. So if you are following this pretty closely with your own design and making your own edits, I want you to be able to do this, you know. It's like I don't want it to just be absolutely too hard or unnecessarily just way too many pieces or anything like that. So this is the middle ground. We used a koala's body piece for the middle part of the ears and a dolphin. There's the fin that's in the back. It's kind of like the middle fin. If you just place your cursor, you can't even see it actually, the fin that we grabbed. But if you just go below the middle belly part of the dolphin, you can actually grab that if you just kind of touch aimlessly right there in that middle belly part. But that was for the top of the ears, the dolphin fin. And we used a muscle. We actually put the muscle pretty big and moved it behind the mouth, or behind the teeth, I should say, because that will be the main bulk of the mouth, behind the teeth there. An oil spill is actually for the other bottom jaw piece, that secondary bottom jaw. And so this is actually going to be the stamp limit reached. I told you that we do have a stamp limit, and there it was after that last Irish moss, which is good. I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to include that, but we got it. And so again, you know, like Twisted Bonnie, for instance, if you look at the picture, he's drooling. We didn't get to include that, or the whiskers or certain tears and rips and things like that, but it's okay. Again, you can do those with different different scripting or glue if you would like to, but here's the scripting or the properties that you need to edit if you do create the head and the body separately ever in this game. Go to the equipment tab here in the properties editor, and down on this bottom half of the screen there's these 4 circles that you can see, and so this third circle down from the top on that bottom half of the screen, you can see it says can be worn on the face like glasses. You just want to fill that in and you'll be good to go. It'll mostly put the head where you want it to go. Really, you just put the head object that you've created into the hands of your body object, you know, like give it to it in Scribblenauts when you're on the map or on the level, and it'll mostly go in the spot that you want it to. The hands are going to be very, very similar to when we did Twisted Freddy. You know, we've got an alien's torso right there as sort of the main part of the palm. You can do it for the back or the front part of the palm. For the thumb's claw piece, you know, that fingernail right there, I wanted it to be even more curling than the other ones, and so I went with Urumi. Now you can also call it Urumi, depending on which part of the world you're from, but it's this hook hand, you know, it's kind of like Captain Hook's hand or something, as if you were holding that. That's sort of what it looks like, and so golden egg is basically going to be for all of these parts of the fingers, and we're just resizing them as needed. As we're placing some down, we can kind of see, hey, these are too big or too small. Now you can notice I've typed in moon, and so these will be for the other claws, fingernails right there, and they will be curling over. But if you ever notice that, like, oh, I'm trying to move it down with these arrows, but it's not actually going down far enough, you know, it stops before it gets to the point that you want it at, you basically have to increase the size, then move it down, and then decrease that size back. You'll notice then, though, if you move it after you've done that, it'll jump back down because it has a certain distance that the stamps can travel, basically, in Scribblenauts Unlimited, away from that source object, which was glue for this particular object, Twisted Bonnie's hand, which I'm naming it that and putting an L for the left side. Of course, that's Twisted Bonnie's left side. It's not to our left. It's going to be actually on our right, and I just increased the health of it just in case it gets attacked or something like that. We wanted its health to be big, and so we'll include some half rests and things for some ripping and tearing in the hand here, all that wear and tear. But as I was saying, you know, if you are finding that you are having trouble moving it, just do what I said about increasing the size, get it where you think you want it, decrease it, but then if you need to move it again after that, you're going to need to increase the size once again to be a lot bigger, because again, it only has a certain distance it can travel away from that glue that you started with. We'll go with a squid, and we'll take that upper tentacle piece that's kind of close to the body. You can grab either one of them, really. There's one at the top and one at the bottom. You just don't want the end tentacle pieces because they have little triangles attached to them and things, and that's actually going to be the stamp limit when we do one more, because this is just a cross-stitch piece right here. It's just some scratching on the palm, and that's pretty good. So we're just layering it behind the fingers right there because we don't want it to be super squid long like that, but that's okay. So I'll save that design, and we can put it all together like this. If you see now, we have the head off, but we've actually attached those hands. Well, basically, you just try to put the head into the hands of the body object, you know, just give it to it right there, and you can notice that it's not where we want it to be. It looks actually quite crazy and quite off. Well, the way to solve that is basically then we go to edit our body object, so the Twisted Bonnie body right here, turn on the green grids by pressing that button on your left side panel of buttons and things that you can press right there, and you've got a dotted line pattern with Maxwell's head in there and a wheel and a banana and all that. You click that and it turns on the green grids. That's these grids, and you can see that there's one huge blank grid right there where the head is supposed to be. Well, that is where that head goes, and since you scripted it to be worn on the face like glasses, it's basically going where glasses would be on that head grid. And so for this purpose, we actually needed to move it higher up and a little bit forward, which would be to the right for this character. And so now I think that that's where the head should be, and that looks really good. I mean, this is, again, trying to fit within the stamp space limitations. We did a pretty good job here. Notice, actually, this is to my left of my avatar right now. On that left side of the screen, that's my remake of Bonnie right here. We're actually going to be using this for a video coming up somewhat soon. I'm not going to promise the exact date, but I'm just going to say soon. But I did want to show that off. You know, I created Bonnie originally, that's just from the first Five Nights at Freddy's game, all the way back in 2014. That was, you know, in late November of 2014, and it was way different than this. You know, this I feel obviously is a much more accurate version, but back then I wasn't even creating objects as two separate pieces. You know, they were all one object. We had very little stamp space to work with by using those methods, but I mean, I didn't think it was that bad or anything, but this is definitely an improvement. Anyway, let's go ahead and show you our Twisted Freddy from last time. Of course, you can see that episode by going to the channel here or checking out the series playlist and just going to last week's episode or even searching it on YouTube. We're pitting them against each other, and I don't know what's gonna happen. Actually, now it looks like Twisted Bonnie is gonna win. I thought Twisted Freddy was gonna win at first, but Twisted Freddy started off with a golem as the source object, and of course Twisted Bonnie here, as you can recall, is the Skeleton Warrior, and Twisted Bonnie is going to win the fight between the two. It is absolutely twisted, as both of them have duked it out, and Twisted Bonnie is still living. This actually, with Twisted Bonnie hunched over like this, it kind of looks like the teaser image. I just thought I would show you that real fast. But thank you guys so much for viewing this. Your support is awesome, and I need it now more than ever, as YouTube is really, really unstable. It's like YouTube is just doing things that don't make any sense here, and it's really hurting the smaller big channels like mine. It's like I'm a big channel, but I'm a small big channel. And so with that, it's actually made me realize I do need to kind of have a backup on another platform, and so I'm actually working to build up my Twitch. Of course, if you want to see me over there, I do live stream every week, Monday and then other days as well. Twitch.tv/DRKENDO. And thank you guys so much. I will catch you on the next vid, and thanks for viewing.
On the road of twists and turns, always anxious to see what's within. We can look ahead to the point of no return, to the rest of our lives as a spectacle we